They could have just had Shrek sit in that chair, and I would have been less bothered by it.
I'm Austin.
I'm Cloud.
And I'm Brittany.
This is We Watch We.
This week's movie is Bohemian Rhapsody. Bohemian Rhapsody is a 2018 biographical film directed by Bryan Singer and Dexter Fletcher, starring Rami Malek, Lucy Boynton, Gwilman Lee, Ben Hardy, Why did I stumble over an easy one? Joseph Mazzello, Aidan Gillen, Tom Hollander, and Mike Myers. How about that synopsis?
Well, from what I could understand, a band named Smile. Because like they had some other stuff up there, but it said Smile. Loses their main singer, and then that's when a guy who decides to change his name to Freddie Mercury, it's like, hey, let's actually do some stuff. I write songs. And then they made Queen. And then things fell apart. And then they got back together again. And then they played on stage in front of the world. Like the whole world, like there was the stage and then the Earth, and they just played for Earth.
I mean, basically, yeah. Now the thing right in there though, right in the middle of that is, yes, that is what happens in the movie, but that's not in fact what actually happened, because they did not break up at all. He did go off and like do a solo thing because they gave him a ton of money to do it, but the whole band sort of agreed, like, we've made like 12 albums. We're kind of tired of this. Which what he says. He says, aren't you tired of like album tour? And it's like, yeah, they all were. And so they all were like, yeah, let's do something else for a little while. But then the year before the Live Aid show, they put out an album together. So they had been together. The last tour for that last album ended like 6 weeks before the Live Aid show. So there was no Queen wasn't Queen anymore, and then we've got to get it together, and we don't know how to play anymore, and he can't sing anymore, and we don't know how to play the songs, but we're gonna do it because Africa. That's not what happened.
Movie drama.
Yeah, it's movie drama, but it's just
to the max.
Just that's not the only thing that's not true. There are some other things, but
a lot of things that aren't true.
Which is unfortunate, because this is one of those cases. This is like a Captain Phillips kind of case where if it wasn't for the it's not true part, I think it does an amazing job of basically everything. So it's just the like history part of it that's the main difficulty. I mean, it gets a little sort of generic biopic-y here and there, and there's some cliche kind of stuff, but
I just keep picturing like the text that shoots at the screen.
The critic's text.
Yeah, and then it says perfectly adequate.
Yeah.
and that burned into my brain because it's just like,
well,
what?
In sort of a way they couldn't possibly have expected, that actually is similar to what has happened with the movie itself, where critics are like, yeah, it's not such a much, but then most people are like, yeah, it's really great stuff, which is what happened with the song. And so you could make that scene with this movie instead of the song and do all the critic pull quotes and things and do basically the same thing.
Now, that does kind of make me wonder, like, if you've never heard anything from Queen before, like, how would this movie actually affect you?
I think the less you know, the better the movie is.
Yeah, I think that's probably it.
No. What I'm saying is just like, because I know the music, like, I don't know anything about the story behind Queen. I just listened to the music.
Right.
And so, like, I can enjoy it because
VH1's behind the music.
Yeah. I could enjoy it for multiple things, but it's like also kind of being there. It's like, hey, they're actually making these songs I like. But what if you had never heard any of their music before at all? Like, you went into it
some
as
of it, I guess, probably wouldn't play where you see things where you know what they're talking about that doesn't exist yet. And so the scene reads in a particular way, or where like certain dialogue is almost like winking at you, saying like, we know, we're going to get there.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, that doesn't doesn't play. I think the most major of those is when, not even when they're actively making any music, but just when he reaches up to the piano from the bed and plays the opening piano riff, and he says, "I think it has potential," and that only works.
There's that, but then there's also like he's writing the lyrics on the paper when he's in art school still, and like he's written some of the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody on that piece of paper, which is like 7 or 8 years before the song actually came out, which is true. He really did work on writing the song for like 7 or 8 years before they, finished production on it. But that's one of the moments that if you hadn't heard the song, if you didn't know the lyrics, you probably wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously this is the name of the movie. But being able to have like the bits and pieces played when no one's actually playing it, whenever they're out and they're at the farmhouse and he's outside, and then you can hear it as the background music before it cuts to him playing it. See, I like little stuff like that.
Yes.
Like it feels very environmentally movie building.
That all comes from A Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
The Beatles movie. They basically invented all of that in that movie. Nobody had really done that before, even though that's not really biography. That's just like a long form music video with some story stuck here and there.
No, a long form music video
fictional, but
is Tron Legacy.
Well, I don't know. I think there's a little too much story than that. But yes, it's almost like that.
Like I got to the point I could listen to that album and then like just watch the movie again in my head with that album.
I think the music is the best part of that movie, for sure.
I won't argue with you on that.
Which may be the case here also. Because that is the thing. All of the music stuff is really, like, they used, even, like you said, when they're not, like, performing music, just when they use music, all of that is used in really effective and interesting ways. And when they do actually do performances, all of that stuff is really well staged. And we'll talk about Live Aid later, but just all of the other stuff. And it's not like, because what was one of the things that you could have been afraid of before this was, are they just going to have a guy lip sync to Freddie Mercury singing? Because that seems like that could be pretty lame. And while it's kind of that, it's not exactly that.
Oh, Rami Malek was so good at the singing. Like
you mostly don't hear that much of his actual voice in the real song performances. You do when there's the like when he's singing "Happy Birthday" to himself. That's mostly his voice. There's a guy who does a really dead-on Freddie Mercury voice that they sort of discovered from internet videos, and then I think he won a sound-alike contest or something. I'm trying to find his name here. I read it earlier. And then also Rami Malek's voice. And it's kind of a mix of all three of them pretty much all the time. And so it's not just, let's watch a guy lip sync for a whole movie.
But like, if it were lip syncing, it was the best.
It would still be,
because he just the muscles in his neck were moving.
Well, because he is actually singing.
Exactly.
The thing is that he's not lip syncing at all.
It's so good performance wise.
What everybody gets wrong when they do, even like professional people doing real music videos, actual popular people do terrible pretend singing to their own music because they don't actually sing.
Right.
And you have to sing because there's so much more going on than your mouth moving.
Even in this movie, you can tell, like, when they're shooting that very first thing for the BBC for Killer Queen, right? They tell him to lip sync.
Yeah.
And the camera pans across him, and you can tell that he's lip syncing.
Which is what it looks like, what the real stuff looks like. This is the BBC.
Yeah.
It's the way we do it on the BBC.
I could feel like I wasn't doing it physically, but I could just feel like in my mind just crossing my arms and shaking my fist at the BBC.
Crossing your arms and shaking your fist? How does that work?
It's an intermittent process.
Do one.
You just switch between.
I've got 2 sets of arms.
No, he is, and it's not just us saying this. Like even like the most critical critic that hates this movie praises Rami Malek's recreation of Freddie. Like,
he's so perfect as Like so at first, I'm so
glad
Rami
it's not
Malek,
Sacha Baron Cohen. I'm so glad, because that was who it was originally supposed to be, like 4 years ago when they started this thing.
He was perfect for this. At first, I could only see him, but then as it went more and more into it, like all I could see was Freddie.
Well, that's
there was a moment where it switched, and I'm not really sure what the moment was.
That tends to happen anyway, even when it's not a perfect recreation, which this mostly is, because like the look is really, really close. I think it's closer once he gets the mustache, and then it's less obvious that, like, because even though that's what Freddy's teeth looked like, it looks like sort of an artificial thing, because that's not what people normally look like. And then the mustache evens out his face, and then it just looks like Freddie Mercury. The earlier, which I'm not that familiar with looking at pre-mustache Freddie anyway, so it's not. I don't get as much of a read on it.
I think they got it pretty close. I think Rami Malek's skin tone is darker, but that's hard to judge because a lot of pictures, like the white balance is wrong.
Yeah, you have no idea what's going on.
You don't really
pictures,
know if it's accurate or not. But he looks more pale in pictures.
He does look more pale later, though. I think.
Well,
in the movie,
does.
He looks
more
pale.
Yeah.
But in Frost Nixon, Frank Langella does not look like Nixon, really. Right. And he's only doing like halfway to a Nixon kind of voice. He's not doing an impersonation. He's doing a character that's based on this actual person. He does it a lot closer than Anthony Hopkins does in Oliver Stone's Nixon. He's doing a much closer thing to an impersonation, even though he's still not. Anthony Hopkins doesn't really try at all. He just sort of becomes Nixon in his own way. But there is a moment, probably, 20 minutes in or something in Frost Nixon, where it goes from being like you're thinking of Frank Langella, and then suddenly it's Nixon. And they do that. I think part of the construction of it does that in a way, because they use this moment of actual Nixon, and they sort of intercut between sort of where you can see actual Nixon and then Frank Langella doing the same thing, and it's all in like old TV filtering, and so that sort of leads you into it. There's nothing like that here. We're just like, here's a guy, and we're told this is his name, and so you just have to believe it. Well, although I think what they do a very good thing in the construction, though, by having us start at the end. So it is what we think of as Freddie Mercury. It is mustache, shorter hair. It's because they bookend it with Live Aid, so which is the most like visible, iconic. Everybody has seen this performance of Queen if you've not seen any other video. And so that does anchor it right away. We're like, okay, so this is the same guy playing this version of it and that version of it. And so it does kind of lead you in.
Well, whenever we have him younger, like I think I'm gonna agree. Like, I guess it's just because of trying to get that age look. He doesn't like, he feels more Raimi than anything. But I would say for myself, it does this hard cut right before they go on tour. And then
the first tour?
Yeah, and then it's just like he's wearing the getup. And I think that was something for me because I'm used to seeing
the
that
US
getup.
tour is up.
Yeah. The US one. And then it's like during all of those quick cuts, and it's just like, we love you, insert place, that kind of thing. I think that's what really kind of flipped it for me, because I'm used to seeing all of that.
Yeah.
And that
all the extravagance and
the colorful suits.
And the onesie and
which is ridiculous. Because at first you think like, oh, he's wearing ridiculous pants. Nope. It's a ridiculous whole thing.
Yeah.
Then he takes the jacket off and it's all up and down.
Yeah. Which, have you seen pictures of like Freddie Mercury in that getup? And then it's identical. Like they
well, everything everything is identical.
So
like
good.
I was immediately not like, it was perfect right away, and then they only had chances to screw it up later.
Yeah.
Because the starting it at Live Aid and doing such a dead on recreation of that. Everything, like he walks out on stage, you can see the piano, the like all of those Pepsi cups, and then the two clear ones with the beer in them are exactly where they actually were. There's like 7 cups.
I actually liked the lead
totally
up to that better, like when he's like bouncing around and like doing the like air punches and
that stuff is cool, but I don't know what that looks like. So it's not like
I don't know, but it puts you in the moment and like it gets you into the like those feel like characteristics of Freddie Mercury. I don't think I've ever seen him do those things, but like
because he did it back. You never saw him do it,
but it feels true to what I think of.
Well, because it doesn't seem like I'm going to take like a real step down in importance here for most people, but Mike Dirnt from Green Day talks about how you can't just go out on stage and then build up energy. You have to walk out on stage like 10 feet in the air and stay there. And so like they do all this stuff backstage to get just like they've already played like 3 songs and they're running on treadmills, and like you have to come out on stage as a runaway train or you won't get the audience there. It'll feel like a dead show.
You gotta come out like a train, just
so that it's that kind of stuff. Like to be Freddie Mercury on stage, to be that hyper and animated and doing all of the stuff that he does, it doesn't seem like he could just be like sitting in an easy chair petting a cat and then like jump up and be Freddie. Although he could because he's Freddie Mercury. But just having that, because no one else's Freddie Mercury, makes it believable, because you can imagine like that's what you would have to do. You know, you would have to hype yourself up to do that, even though they don't give us the fake difficulty of what that show was going to be. Although it wasn't totally fake. I think he did have bronchitis or something, or laryngitis, something. He did have some kind of problem where it was difficult for him to sing.
Well, and what year was the Live Aid show?
Live Aid is 85.
85, yeah.
Which, that's the other significant historical non-fact, is that he, as far as anyone can tell, he wasn't actually diagnosed with AIDS until 87.
I thought it was 86.
It's either late 86 or somewhere in 87. No one knows for sure,
right?
Because he kept it secret. Right. But the best anybody can figure out from putting the multiple stories together is somewhere around late 86, 87. So he didn't know. So that he tells the band is a fake moment, and he didn't know.
Movie drama.
I know it's drama. Fine, but it's just not. It's better for the drama. It just isn't actually true. So I'm just pointing it out.
Like this would be one of those things, because like I wasn't there for Captain Phillips, but I'm here for this one, and for the movie's sake, you know, telling a story, I thought it worked rather well.
No, it does work really well.
I had no idea it was going to be like 2 years later. You know, because that's something I just don't, because I don't know about Queen. I just listen. And so it's like, oh, well, it worked in the movie, but could they have not used it? And I don't think they could have. Well, especially with the route they were going.
But you would have had to have restructured the whole thing. This having Live Aid be the anchor point and having us not get anything past that means you have to move everything up to before that, because we're not going to see after it. So we don't know what happens 2 years after, and we're not going to go to 91 and see him die. So you have to do everything you're going to do before then, even if it didn't happen before then. I think it is a good idea to anchor it that way, because that's such an iconic moment. And also that they actually just do it, because I was really worried at the beginning that they were going, because they started there, it's okay, they started there, then they took us back in time, they're going to get us back, and we're just going to get to that moment, and then, well, everybody's seen the Live Aid video, we're not going to bother, and we weren't going to actually get to see any of it. I was really afraid. That's what the Steve Jobs movie did, was they built up to all of these, that they're in Sorkin one. They built up to all these iconic moments when he announced the iPod, when he announced the iMac, when the iPhone announcement, and they did all of it, the lead up to it, and then you never saw the actual event. They didn't bother to recreate the actual event, and I thought that was what was going to happen here, but they didn't. They didn't do that.
Payoff. Plus, the performances were always nice to watch.
Well, the performances.
I mean, it's not like we're going to have like pseudo Steve Jobs come out and play an instrument and entertain us. Like, now maybe if that's the route they went, we'd have a different opinion about some of this stuff. But no, we got this guy. He's this is Freddie Mercury for the camera. Here's your performance. Enjoy.
So you were concerned.
Yeah.
Are you still like? Was your concern?
Yeah, I hate a lot of what they did. So they kind of made it out to where he has Mary, right, his girlfriend, and then fiance that he's with for like 8 or 9 years, right? No, that is true. But then it makes it out. There's this moment where he tells her, "I think I'm bisexual," and she says, "No, Freddie, you're gay." And then the movie proceeds to portray him as gay.
Yeah, because there's never any other women. It's always just dudes with mustaches.
Not accurate at all. No. Freddie Mercury slept with men and women his entire life, pretty much. So
pretty much with everyone.
Yeah.
Any opportunity.
He just liked sex. Like he liked to get it. He liked to give it. Like it just,
Which this version of it, which is one of the big criticisms everybody has, this idea of that Freddie was gay, which is what I thought for a very long time.
Culturally, that's, I think
some of it is also because even though it didn't happen this way, that Paul did actually do some interviews, not at the time that he did in the movie, but and that was sort of the point where it became a cultural idea that Freddie was gay, and it didn't really recover from that because he was very private. He didn't talk about anything about himself really, and so there was no real information. Nobody really knew. But I thought, because there's in the beginning of the really fast guitar part in the middle end of the middle third of I Want It All, there's a line where he says, "Bring on the girls." And I was always super confused by that because as far as I knew, Freddie was gay because that was what I'd always been told.
Culturally, it's hard for people to understand being bisexual. Like, I don't know. For them, it's like if a dude is bisexual, he's gay now. Like, he doesn't like girls. And so and I think that maybe Brian May and Roger Taylor are part of that. Part of the group of people who don't understand what being bisexual is.
I mean, that could be.
I feel like they greenlit the movie. They signed off on pretty much everything. They were very
involved. They were very involved even in just recreating particular moments. And I think that
from their perspective, they were like, "Oh, Freddie's gay now," and so they just they were like, "Yeah, this is all correct." But
I think maybe they didn't ever really see him except with
Mary.
Dudes.
Well, and Mary,
after Mary, yeah. So they may not have really had any experience of it. There's also a very strange moment where there's the truck driver guy that confuses the whole thing because Freddie doesn't even see. He has this look on his face where it almost seems like he doesn't know what to think of the look the guy just gave him. But then there's this cut, and then what comes after it makes it seem like something probably happened.
Yeah, I don't think that look was. I don't know what to make of that look. I think it was the DTF look. I think it was
maybe.
I think he was like, "Am I really about to go in this bathroom and bone this random trucker guy?" Yeah, I am. I think that's what that look was.
Well, I'm gonna kind of jump in on this one because I've always known that he was bi. Because there's a few things that I knew, and that was one of them.
Okay.
Because I remember him dying of it's "Oh yeah, you got AIDS, brah. No cure, dead."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And I remember the whole thing about just slept with everybody. I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever he's like, "I think I'm bi," and then she makes the comment about being gay,
mm-hmm.
I would have to see that again because I wasn't sure if she said he was or asked him if he was.
No,
because
she said. She said, "No, Freddie,
really?
You're gay. I've known for a long time."
He said this. Don't put words in his mouth.
Yeah, that's what she does. And actually, I that's a thing that happens a lot in real life. So and I don't know, Bryan Singer, I don't know how aware he is of that thing. I assume pretty aware, but I don't know. But that is the thing that happens where somebody is like, "Hey, I'm bisexual," and then everyone in their life is like, "No, you sleep with people of the same sex, you are gay."
Yeah, but it's not even that. It's not even that. It's I want to know how you can be in this kind of just this general area, and you know what he's doing, regardless of whatever you want to call it. But then whenever you put it in the movie, it kind of makes me wonder if they put a heavy focus on like dudes sleeping with dudes because they were going to go with the whole like AIDS kind of like
probably,
and
but
that's,
I feel like
that's
it's
part
an
of the
agenda.
problem. That's part of the problem though, is that culturally, like, people think of him as gay because he died of AIDS.
Yeah.
And so a movie about his life should probably correct that inaccuracy or that like misconception or whatever it is.
Well, originally the before AIDS was AIDS, it was called gay-related immunodeficiency disorder or syndrome. It was GRID before it was AIDS, because it was like, oh, it's a bunch of dudes and they're gay and they're getting this thing we don't know what it is
with monkeys,
and we didn't even know the monkeys part yet. That is one of my favorite. Ricky Gervais
that's
though.
yeah. I say yes, like they're getting it from monkeys. Like, no. And I like it. I like that. I like it because like go and find Ricky Gervais doing his bit about AIDS. Actually, he does it in his video game character form in the comedy club in GTA 4 even, so you can find it there as well. But it's just because he doesn't ever actually say anything. He does it all with like, he leads up to about to say something and then he just like trails off, and he does a lot of looks, and it's really, really well constructed. And it's okay because he's gay. So I know that doesn't make it okay, but it's
yeah.
It is sort of strange that because you could say, well, maybe they leaned away from he just had sex with everyone because we wanted to have it be PG-13 and we didn't want to lean too heavy on the sex stuff. But it seems like going he sleeps with dudes is more sensitive culturally and is more likely to be offensive than just we see him having a lot of sex generally. And so it's odd that they
see him having sex at all.
No, we don't, but there's a whole lot of implication. There's parties and leather and
there's parties
looks.
and leather, but is it him or is it the manager? And the thing is, we don't know that much about Freddie's life, and we know what the manager guy has said. I forgot his name, something with a P. Paul, yeah.
That's a name I actually remembered.
Haha.
Yeah.
He was actually real.
Yeah, he was real, and like you said, like the interview thing that he did was real. Oh, it wasn't on TV; it was on radio.
It was written. I think it was in print. I think it wasn't actually broadcast at all.
Oh,
okay. And it was actually he did it before he was fired, and it's actually the reason he was fired. He didn't do it as revenge for being fired. It's actually the opposite of what the movie shows.
I mean, there's no telling if what like the things that he said were true anyway, and like, and we don't know, and just we don't know that much about Freddie and what he.
We know that he did drink a lot, that he did party a lot, and then he did do drugs probably, but we don't know what happened in between those. Most of that is just the for sure stuff about that is just because he did show up late for things a lot and
high
and high. So we know that from the rest of the band.
Which we talked a lot about Rami Malek and how great that he was as Freddie, but like the guy playing Brian May is perfect. Holy crap. Like Roger Taylor, that guy did a good job of characterizing him. Like I believed it was Roger. He doesn't look exactly the same. He looks pretty close, but the guy who played Brian May, I mean, he looks exact. Like it's real. And I actually was laughing at one of the performances in the theater because it just looked so much like Brian May playing his guitar, and I was like, holy shit.
I like also when you see them playing instruments that it looks like they're really trying. Like you see them looking down, and when they're playing something really hard, there's actual like effort into it, and it's not we're just pretending to play instruments over here. Because especially guitars, people playing guitars in movies is bad almost all the time.
Almost all the time, yeah.
I mean, it used to be for a long time there was only one good example, and it was in an otherwise not very good movie, which is Crossroads with or Crossroad. I don't remember if there's an S or not, with Ralph Macchio.
Oh, okay. It's Crossroad probably because Crossroads is Britney Spears.
Okay.
So.
And he
not the right movie. No. I'm trying to.
There's no guitar. Well, there is a little bit of guitar playing in that, but like I can't remember if it's good or bad.
What?
Oh, the kid.
What?
Okay, so like I'm terrible at names. So you're saying like, oh, this person and this person and this person. So I'm on the IMDb, so I can kind of get an idea of name to face to character.
Okay.
And when we were in the theater, I made comment about everybody except the bass player looks like they're in a band performing on stage, and the bass player dude is just over there.
Yeah.
Just like in a kind of polo long sleeve sweater looking kind of vest things.
Yeah.
Looking very middle class British, if you will.
Yeah, and
with holding the bass.
I really like that they kind of played that up to their backgrounds. Like Freddie was an art student, and Roger Taylor was a dental student, and Brian Mays was an astrophysicist, and John Deegan was an electrical engineering student. And so like I really like that they like kind of played that up a little bit, and then they kept referring back to it, making jokes kind of.
Yeah. But the thing was, like, I couldn't quite tell, but the John Deacon, the guy who's playing him, when I clicked on his filmology, it says known for Jurassic Park, Tim. And I was trying to think of who Tim was, and I'm like, oh, Tim's the kid.
Oh, the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Hey, that's the kid. Now he plays bass. Yes, I will make those kinds of jokes. Leave me alone.
Now, everybody wasn't that fancy at Live Aid though. Like Brian and Roger are both just in like white shirts with the sleeves rolled up, and like they're not even. Which it's the least. It's odd that one of Freddie Mercury's most iconic outfits is so simple compared to everything else that he wore because he wore these jumpsuits and all this kind of stuff, and then Live Aid, it's just jeans, a white tank top, and he's got a leather like band around his arm, like a studded band around his arm, and that's all. That's all it is, and it's really like base level simple. And I think it's just because the I mean, really, he never needed all of that anyway, because he's such a presence just by himself.
Well, he didn't need it, but he liked it.
Well, no, he did.
You know.
But I think that's why it's like he can still just be like, yeah, I'm just wearing ordinary clothes. Still Freddie Mercury, and I'm still like gonna blow you against the back wall of the stadium.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I am interested in, which they really keep as a constant through the whole movie, is whenever he does perform on stage for like the first time with the smiles or whatever, and he can't seem to get
the mic stand,
and then he just rips it off. And then after that, like you always see, he doesn't hold a microphone. He holds a microphone like stand that's like
and
which
he really did
true.
Do that.
He did have the bar out of a stand with a mic in it. I don't know
if
about
that's
that
the
moment.
backstory, but because it was, because Brian and Roger had so much to do with it, it probably is true. I assume,
it probably might be true.
Yeah,
because like if the personality that we're shown in the movie is as accurate as it should be, I would say that's something that would kind of stick. Like you're going for this performance and the microphone won't work, so you rip it, and then it just kind of like, I like this.
Yeah.
And it just sticks with you. So I can see that being something real.
After that first performance with them, it cuts to a year later that he's been with the band. So we don't really know what he tried out in the meantime. We don't really know his stage persona in that like transition period, really, before they made it big.
Well, there is a bunch of time that's just totally skipped over.
Yeah.
There's like, we see them make like 3 albums, and there are 11 other albums that we know nothing about. There's this whole period after the A Night at the Opera album that they just don't cover. It's all in that tour montage, and then they have the rest of the music for other shows later, but we just don't know anything about it from the movie. They don't bother with it at all.
That reminds me about the scene when they're trying to pitch A Night at the Opera to the EMI guy who is Mike Myers.
Miami.
That Miami Beach.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
But I loved all of that where they're trying to explain opera to him and they're trying to explain metaphors and he just doesn't understand. And it's so, and he just keeps saying, like, the single should be "I Love My Car."
Well, that's after the album. That's after they make it. That's not the pitch. That's when they play it after it's finished, and he's angry because they. Yeah,
oh,
that's
right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's two scenes, but they're both in his office, and they're. Yeah.
Now I'm gonna admit I didn't realize that was him until he opened his mouth, and then I'm like, oh, please tell me that's makeup. You did not age well.
Which it's makeup. Because you're not really supposed. See, the thing is that you're not supposed to be distracted by it being Mike Myers, but also you kind of have to know, or there's no reason for those scenes really, because he's not a real that. It's not a historical thing that happened. He's sort of a combination character of several different record executives, and one in particular who, even though he was a big fan of the band and he liked the song, he did think it was too long for radio, but he didn't try to stop them.
So the whole produced, or the whole you greenlit the Dark Side.
No, he's
a
fake. He's a fake guy.
Oh, okay.
He's not a real guy.
I almost, but no, the thing is whenever I realized that was him, I think that jarred me so hard that if
well, see, I knew it was coming.
They could have just had Shrek sit in that chair, and I would have been less bothered by it. Michael Myers. All right,
I knew that the scene existed, and I knew that he played it. I'd heard that already, and so it wasn't. I had no idea. It wasn't. It didn't jar me because I was just waiting for it to happen, and I didn't know how it was going to play out. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, except I knew that Mike Myers played a record executive who didn't think anybody would ever like Bohemian Rhapsody.
It's actually really hilarious because you put all those people in a room, all of those actors, and you're like, who's going to be the funny one in this scene? And it's not Mike Myers.
Well, I knew the scene existed because I'd seen some of the trailers. Because that's where you get the whole your wife 6 minutes kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because that's where you get that. But he doesn't say anything.
No, so you don't know. It's hard
exactly.
to tell.
So it's I see the dude, whatever, he's sitting there, but I don't know it's him. And then I hear him. And then I'm shocked.
Yeah, I was too. I feel you.
Now at the same time, luckily we get the second one where it's it's too long for radio. Oh well, and they go to that one guy.
I do like radio station scene.
That. That's a really good scene because it kind of makes you feel like you're in on it.
Yeah.
So I definitely approve of that one. Thanks to guy who does not exist.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then they bring him back during the Live Aid show when they're playing Bohemian Rhapsody. Yep. He's just listening to it on the radio, just looking frustrated and angry, and or on TV, I guess.
You'll forever be known as the guy who lost Queen,
which didn't happen. So it's a bit of
that
extreme
seems like a
drama
weird thing to say. It's almost like they were trying to point to a thing that had happened, or that's one of the moments that makes you think that there was something behind it, or
it is true that they did change labels, but I don't think there was any extreme we're walking out kind of we're doing it because we're angry kind of thing. I don't remember the whole story, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't this. You're not gonna play
in the context of the movie, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I really I guess it's there just to add drama or something. It's just for drama.
It's the ring going down the drain in Apollo 13. You don't need it, and it's just dumb and bogus. It makes sense
internally because they get discovered doing weird shit in a studio, and that's how they get signed.
Literally weird shit.
Weird shit. That's so cool. I love that scene.
We're just gonna take a bucket, stick it over the microphone, and stand over here and
I love when they put the coins on the drums, and then they started that was so great. But that's how that's how the movie portrays them getting discovered and signed for their uniqueness. And then all of a sudden it's
true.
You can't do this unique thing.
Well, that always happens though. Record executives are really bad at the job that they have about half the time.
Well, sometimes movie executives too. That happen with movies.
Go back to the previous episode. Stupid studio being stupid, not thinking people wanted to see big budget movies before the Poseidon Adventure anymore because they failed with some giant musicals that were just bad. But you look like you want to say something. What?
Yeah. Well, I think for the executives who are bad at being executives, like, yeah, there's obviously some that are real because bad decisions are still being made. But I see a lot of this happening, like, either in older movies and anything that portrays, like, times that have already passed. Because nowadays, you're going to have executives who are going to sign on people like 6ix9ine, who literally has rainbow for teeth. You know, like, you have, like, that whole, like, I don't care. I don't care. It's like, you got the goofy looking SoundCloud rappers, and they get signed on by executives who have enough sense to make money off of it.
Well,
and so I don't think we can, like, like this kind of.
But that implies that they have a unique sound, and they don't. Most SoundCloud rappers sound pretty.
But see, it's not. I don't even care about the sound. It's like the idea of having this uniqueness in any way.
Well, they're like, okay with the unique look, but they're not okay with the unique sound. I don't think.
Well, what happens with record executives and with producers and with bands is that they often do hit to start with because they are doing something unusual or something in a different way than what is otherwise popular at the time, but then that is the thing that gets focused on.
Yeah, I feel
and so then they're like, well, but you were popular because you did this weird thing. Like keep doing this weird thing.
A really good example of this is Imagine Dragons. Like, their first album, they had like very unique, like, identifying sounds that were theirs. And then now they just, I don't know if
now
you guys
sound
know.
Like Nickelback.
I don't know if you guys know that they just came out with an album and how it's being made fun of on the internet right now.
But
it's being
made fun
completely trashed and eviscerated because it sounds so generic, and it's the same. It's like the stomp clap kind of like heavy bass and like shouting chorus, and like that's all of their songs, and that's all that they have been for the past 3 albums, and people are getting really sick of it and pissed.
Well, it's often difficult for bands too. The so-called sophomore album is usually the most difficult one for a band to do, because they make an album and they're like, look, we made an album, this is who we are, and they put it out and people like it, and then they have to make the second album and then they don't know what to do, because it's like movie sequels are the same thing. It's like the old producer saying is do the same thing but different, and the how much of the same thing and how much of different you do is what makes whether it's good or not as a second one of something, because people are like, well, we like this, we want some more of that, but if it's too much more of that, then there's no point in it and people don't like it, and so it's difficult. Queen never want, like, it wasn't just like they didn't want to make the same album over and over, they didn't want to make the same song more than once. They were like, we want each song to have its particular sound and also sound like Queen, whatever that meant. And
yeah, that's something that's so great about Queen, is that all of their songs are pretty unique. They don't sound alike,
but it's them
right away. And it's not just Freddie's voice, although that's part of it, because he has such a like iconic, like,
he has a very distinctive voice.
Stomp, clap. Stomp, clap.
Are you looking up memes about Imagine Dragons now?
No. Okay, so that's the,
This We Will Rock You, which I have a story about.
Well, I ran across this image and it was just a little GIF, and you could just see like a boot, and then it moved up and down, and then you saw like hands clapping, and I'm like, God, I got that song in my head. Like, that's all it took.
Oh, that was a really great part of the movie too.
Yeah,
that was
the invention of it, which I don't know. I assume that those parts probably are really true, because it was, Brian and Roger were very heavily involved.
Well, Brian did write that song.
Those yeah, but that doesn't mean that he wrote it like right there in the studio in front of everyone.
It was probably an amalgamation of like, like multiple times or something.
I almost feel like scenes that involve everybody as kind of a group are going to be
more accurate.
Yeah, be a little bit more accurate, because like the people who are like involved in making this were like, no, I was there.
Yeah.
Right.
And, like maybe a little bit of tweaking here and there to kind of help with the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, whenever they're not on screen, I can understand, like, well, how would you even know this happened?
Well, the stuff,
unless you were told.
And the stuff with Freddie alone is impossible to know, because he mostly didn't tell anybody anything, and he's not around to ask. So it's hard. It's hard to know.
I do really hope that happened, though, with Mary when he took her home and she said this bed is so impractical. And then he reaches up over his head to play the piano, which the colors are backwards on. And I just loved that, too, because that feels like a Freddie thing. I don't know if he really had a piano like that. I don't know, but it seems like he would have.
Maybe. It seems too early, though, for him to have had. Even in the point of the story that it's in the movie, they haven't made very much money yet.
I don't think it was a good one. But he had like that tiny little twin mattress with no sheets right underneath the piano, and it was just such a thing.
A thing it was such.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore the piano was played. Chopsticks.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Live Aid for a minute here.
All right.
Put it off for a while now. We're like 47 minutes into the end. Well, it's probably about 43 because there's a bit of dead at the beginning. But I have to talk about it because it's so... Oh, no, wait. Before I do that, I'll put it off a little longer. Because I said I have a story about We Will Rock You. So, like, that's it's a normal thing, like that they play the song at, sports and whatever, and people do it in stadiums on bleachers and things. It's a common thing, almost anywhere you go, because it is really effective at hyping people up. And so it's good. If you want to hype people up, here you go.
And also, I'm going to interject for just a second. My favorite Pepsi commercial ever was Beyonce, Pink, and Britney Spears. And they were like gladiators coming out like into the Coliseum, and everyone was doing like the stomp.
Oh, I remember that. It's a Super Bowl commercial. Yeah. It's from like...
I don't know. It's hella old.
It's 2002, I think.
I know. It's still my favorite Pepsi commercial, though, is We Will Rock You.
Michael Jackson's Hair Catching on Fire.
That's earlier.
I haven't seen that.
That's well, you don't see it in the commercial. It happened during the production of the commercial. According to him, that's why his nose was messed up, not just because he wanted to have plastic surgery. It was a result of trying to repair the burns.
Oh. Did I throw you off? I'm sorry.
No. I was trying to think if there's anything to say about that Michael Jackson commercial. But there are things to say, but I won't say them because they're not important right now. When I was about, I don't know, 7 probably, we went, 6 maybe. We went to Six Flags in Texas, which is in Arlington, which is not important. And at that time, they still had, I don't know what it's been replaced with now. I think they do still do a live stunt show of some kind. Although stunt shows at theme parks are not as big a deal as they used to be, which is disappointing because I really like them. But they had a Batman one. It was a live. Do you know what a stunt show is? Have you ever seen a live stunt show at an amusement park or a theme park? Have you?
I think so.
Well, I mean, what it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a live show that usually in some kind of action-based way. They used to have an Indiana Jones one.
I have. I've seen a Waterworld one at Universal
they did the Waterworld one, which is a really famous one because there's some really difficult, dangerous stuff in there that people almost died doing several times.
But I was like 8 when I saw it, so I don't really remember.
I don't remember a whole lot of detail about it. I remember there was like a big fire explosion at one point, and you could feel the heat off of it really strong. And I remember it being really cool and exciting. People flipping around and stuff.
People just flipping around.
Well, it's Batman. He like jumps off of a thing and like turns over in the air and then lands on this other thing. I don't remember very much about it. It's a long time ago, not over 20 years ago. But before the show, they played some music and they had people do stadium type things, and it was metal bleachers in a concrete arena where the show was. And that was one of the things that they did. And as far as I know, I didn't know what it was at the time, but that's my first memory of something I can identify as being an experience with a Queen song was they played We Will Rock You, and everybody did the stomping. And it's I don't know, 200-300 people or something on these bleachers, which is a small amount of people, but it's still pretty loud, especially for a kid. And I remember that being, something of an experience.
They used to do it at our high school pep rallies.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I had the record with that song on it.
The record?
Yeah. Well, my mother had it but it was in my possession because the record player was in my room.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say the record, do you mean the album, or was it like a single, or?
It was like one of the big vinyl ones.
Okay, so it was the whole
side A, side B, several songs.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then she had like, what are those? Because there's like the small ones that have like 3 songs on them, like 45s or something.
Well, 45s only have 1 song on them. There were some really weird multi-track single releases that are on like slightly larger than 45 size, but not quite LP size, that are still 33 RPM. And so that might have been one of those if it had more than 1 song. Those are what used to be called EPs, extended plays, which has now been appropriated in digital form. But that was what those were. It's shorter than an LP, which is long play. So longer than a 45, not as long as an LP.
Well, because there was like at least 2 to 3 songs per side.
Yeah.
And I remember Kung Fu Fighting was on one of them. Yes, I listened to that one a lot.
Was it a little bit frightening?
No.
Okay, but Live Aid. Because the thing about Live Aid is when it was organized, part of the way that that Bob Geldof was able to get so many people to do it was by promising that it was just going to be a one-off thing, and then it would never be seen again. Like, it would be broadcast on television and then it would go away. And so there is something like 10 or 11 hours of the 16 hours of it that do survive in various forms, mostly because networks didn't erase their tapes the way they were supposed to. CBS did erase all of their tapes, although supposedly there was a whole collection of it before they were erased that they submitted to the Smithsonian, but no one knows where they are. And so they're presumed to be lost or destroyed. So no one knows what happened to them. Hopefully they're in a box somewhere in the Smithsonian archives, and one day they'll be found so we can have the whole thing, because there is a large amount of the performances that we just don't have. There's only the one version of it, the part that went out for broadcast. We don't have multiple angles or anything. We don't have the whole feed from the truck the way that it would have been if you were going to record this, like if you were doing a concert movie or something. So you could edit it again after the fact and use whatever angles you wanted. And so when you watch, even as amazing as it is, which it is, and is, over and over, but it's sort of this, like the Citizen Kane of concert performances, just like anytime a list comes up for people to vote on the best live performance ever, it's always the first or second one. Usually the number one. And it is still really amazing and incredible to watch. And I watched it recently, but before we did this, a couple of weeks ago, and it, like, you're used to hearing Freddie's voice, and it's a very distinctive voice, but you're more used to hearing him than you are seeing him. And when you haven't seen him on video in a long time, and he comes out to play, and he opens his mouth, and the voice comes out of an actual person, it's more striking than it should be, and than it is normally with other performers, or at least it was for me this particular time. I was like, oh, right, he does sound like that just all the time, and it's not something they're just doing for the records. Like, he can just open his mouth and it comes out. But if you watch it, and because they recreated it so carefully, even when you see the television cameras, they are pointing where they actually were, and the way that it looks on the actual TV footage, and it's almost all of Freddie.
Yeah,
and it's like there's an angle of Freddie, and then they cut to another angle, and it's still a camera pointed at Freddie, and you can almost never see the rest of the band unless he's standing right next to them, and it really is kind of the Freddie show, which it is kind of, but the rest of the band is there, and you kind of want to see them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a moment that they played on in the press conference kind of thing.
Yeah,
too,
they did.
Where they were like, "There's 3 more of us up here, you can ask us questions."
Freddie says,
right.
Anyone want to talk about the album?
There's 4 of us,
and they were asking
him,
like, is he sick and whatever? And John Deacon was like, "Well, I just got over a cold." case you're wondering.
Yeah. But even though it's not real, because it's so perfectly recreated, even though they cut out 2 of the songs, because we'd already seen them perform those songs earlier. So it's only 15 of the 20 and a half minutes that the real show was. It's like getting a good version of the actual show that we've never been able to see, because you can see what's going on the rest of the stage rather than just these like 2/3 close-ups of Freddie the whole time. And I really appreciated that. And I was worried the whole for like half the whole sequence, because I thought, well, they're going to give us like one of the songs and then they're going to like ease us out of it. And it just kept going. And I was like, okay. It finally got to a point where I finally believed they're going to do the whole thing. And I was so happy that they did the whole thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted as it was coming up.
I know, I did. I was like, please just do the whole show.
What I really want is just a full like 10 to 15 minutes of just concert. Like, that's all I want right now.
It is kind of disappointing that they didn't do that. They only did the 15 minutes instead of the 20, because it would be even more perfect to have the whole thing. I did see one critic complain about it because they said there's because the real footage is easily available. Wouldn't you rather just watch that than watch a bunch of people faking it?
No, because it's the perfect ending for it, and it leaves it on such a good note.
I can kind of see where they're coming from, because it's like, but this is real. But then at the same time, it's like, yeah, but this we get to see more.
We get to see more, and we get to see it in a theater setting with amazing sound, which the sound is, 1985 satellite TV broadcast audio in stereo. It's okay, but it's not amazing. It's not what you would want it to be. And there's no multi-track versions of it because they weren't kept. Even though they recorded it in like 14 track.
Because, it's fake. Yes, it is fake. It's a movie. The guy's dead. Like, this is about a time from a long ago.
But it's still really enjoyable.
Good. But it's really good.
It is enjoyable.
It made me so happy.
The thing of, like, if you're a critic, you should be judging what, like, I get that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to judge what the movie is and what the movie has and what it brings. But that's something that makes the movie, kind of, that they take special care with the performances. They appreciate them the same way that fans do. That's something that actually makes the movie good. It's not something that detracts from it in any way.
It doesn't detract at all. And it's so good, and it's the Normandy beach landing in Saving Private Ryan of live performance recreation. It's like, it's the best historical moment recreation that I've seen in a movie in a really long time. And it's in like probably top 5 for like just how good it is just as a thing, and also how perfect the recreation is.
Well, let me ask this then. We know that everybody's watching it, and we even get like the little mini snippet of the dad actually saying, get the TV.
Yeah,
get the telly.
Yeah, because this is important.
Because they live in England. So.
Yeah. And I'm kind of wondering, like, how would we feel if they used actual footage that they were able to acquire as if somebody was watching it on TV? So instead of us, the audience, seeing them on stage, we're watching people watch it on TV.
Yeah.
And then like they're watching what's actually real.
I expected a tiny moment of that.
Well, there is actually a very tiny moment. There's one of the really wide shots.
Oh wait,
where
the cats. It shows the TV.
It shows the TV, but it's not the but it's the movie version.
Oh, okay.
It's not the actual concert version.
Yeah,
but
if they replace that with the concert, like how would you feel about that?
No, I think I would have liked it.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes stuff like that works, and I mean, it's the difference between The Right Stuff and Apollo 13, where like The Right Stuff is really good and it really effectively uses the actual NASA footage of the real launches and stuff, but it's limiting in what you can show because there's only what actually exists, and because what exists of the actual show is so limited. You would have to do it only on TV. You couldn't put us in the scene. No. That's
what I'm saying. Like right there, we'll go with the ones, the cats, because that's what was brought up.
Mm-hmm.
we get to see the cats watch like a tiny portion. It's like 2-3 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying like what we see on that screen that those cats are looking at, that's the real footage.
I would have been okay with that.
Not the stuff we see. Like I would have
been okay, I guess.
The normal stuff, like what the movie is.
Yeah.
But they get the live, like this.
It's so close that I don't know that I would even have noticed.
See, like that's what I was thinking. It's
as long as it wasn't very long.
Yeah.
I had just seen it. But there is a moment where you have fake movie Freddie Mercury actually standing on stage, and then actual Freddie Mercury on the Jumbotron next to him on the side of the stage. And you can see it both in a wide shot. They do it for like just a second one time. And so there is a moment where real Freddie and fake Freddie are both in the concert at the same time. But as far as I know, that's the only time they used any of the real stuff. They didn't actually do it in Wembley. They did it in a field somewhere. The reconstruction of the stage and everything, which is fine because all of the rest they could never have had enough people to do it.
Gosh,
so it's all CG people. So there's no reason to use the actual building if you're doing so much of it artificially. So it's just like
CG people.
The first few rows of people, and then the rest of it is fake. But there's a few times in the really wide shots where it's from all the way at the back where it looks a little bit unnatural, where you're pretty sure you can tell that it's CG people, but it still works. Still works really well. And of course, I want to say, just because we're being accurate about history, I know I'm like laying on really thick the praise for the Live Aid performance. That's like as far like I know that the actual like cause of Live Aid didn't really go the way that people wanted it to, and the money didn't really it didn't really help the famine in Africa, but but it was still a really good concert. So that's the part that I'm complimenting, not the actual Live Aid organization, just the show.
See, every time something like this happens, I always think of like Bono.
Well, Bono, yeah.
You know, like in any and everything just revolving around him and the things that he does.
Which Bono I think is involved in the organization now, and was one of the primary people who organized Live 8 in the mid 2000s, which was basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it with 8 simultaneous shows instead of just 2, which is the other thing about Live 8 is it's a really impressive bit of TV production, even though it broke down some of the time and some of it didn't work. But just the idea that we're going to have 2 shows on 2 different continents that are happening basically simultaneously, but we're just alternating between them so that we have time to change over between bands on each one is it's a bananas idea. Like, and all of the people who were responsible for making it work technically, all the TV production people and the sound people, the company that they used to do that didn't really, when they agreed to do it, it was really small and they had like 15 bands or something, and it was before Geldof got everybody on board, and so they didn't really know what they were agreeing to try to produce, and then it very quickly became a much larger, more difficult thing than it was than they thought it was, and they almost didn't pull it off, but they mostly pulled it off. There were a few times where the satellite feed dropped, or you couldn't hear from the other show and at the other show. What they did show happened where they weren't getting very much money, and then Queen went on stage, and then they started getting money very quickly. That did happen that way, and to much disbelief by everyone. And they were late in the show. They were like 5 bands from the end or something. Yeah, from the London side. So the one thing that I couldn't find out whether it was true or not that I really wanted to know was his showcase where he's got a microphone and he's got a bottle of vodka and he's got some drugs and he just carries it with him. I couldn't find out if that was real, or I couldn't find any information on it at all. I want it really bad to be real, kind of, just because it's such a rock star kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if it's real. I couldn't find any pictures of it. I couldn't find anybody talking about it.
It's so funny because the whole idea of bringing a case to a show, like being that prepared, seems like antithetical to being a rock star, that you would be so organized and prepared to like bring do you know what I mean?
Well, kind of, but when it comes
you open it up and it's just like, nope, drink, drugs, microphone, we're good.
When it comes to your instruments,
very
though,
hilarious about that. Well, no, because it's not the rock star's job to keep track of his instrument. It's the road crew's job to do that.
Well, it depends,
the
depends on
stagehands
how
or
connected
whatever.
you are to your instrument.
Yeah, some people are really.
I guess so, but it's
really
a microphone.
involved.
I mean,
yeah, and it's just a. It's not actually a Shure SM58. It's like a 535 or something. It's the precursor model. But it's basically, it's not a special microphone. It's a fairly ordinary microphone. But I guess it's a this is my microphone. There are many like it, but this one is mine kind of thing. Maybe I don't know. It doesn't make any sense why he would take it out in the limousine though, because now he just has to carry it into the show without the case, which seems to negate the usefulness of the case.
I don't know.
So how do we feel about stars?
Believe it or not, I'm giving it 4. And I'm only giving it 4 because the heavy movie drama part kind of fell flat on me. Because I'm just like, once you know how it's going to end, then a lot of what's in between isn't as impactful.
Well, what do you mean by how it's going to end?
Well, like at the beginning of it, we see him at the Live Aid. And then at the end of it, we see him at the Live Aid.
Yeah.
So we don't see him die on screen or anything. So it's just like we know where we're going. And once we get there,
I don't think we knew that we would see him at the end, though. Did we?
What do you mean see him?
Maybe the performance.
Yeah,
but I'm not debating the performance. I'm saying at the beginning of the movie, we see him at Live Aid.
Right.
And then at the end of the movie, we see him at Live Aid.
Yeah.
So we know we're going to see him at Live Aid.
Oh, okay.
So like from the start of it to Live Aid, we know that's where we're going to stop is Live Aid.
I don't know. I don't think that doesn't necessarily make any difference to me, because you always have that problem with things that are based on history, and it doesn't. I always use Apollo 13 as the example. Like, we know that they don't die. We know they made it back. It doesn't make it any less like tense or suspenseful or harrowing or anything, because it's still moment to moment is still effective, even though like the ultimate
but
thing
I'm
is
saying
known.
The drama just kind of fell flat for
Well,
me.
I don't think it's because we know where we're going. I think it's just because the drama is kind of flat a lot of the time.
Well, I think it's because it's largely inaccurate. And Cloud doesn't know that much about the history of Queen, but like, even if you know a little bit of it, as you're watching, you're like, yeah, that didn't happen like that, or it didn't happen in this way.
I think maybe even if you don't, it's more difficult to keep an internal consistency with the things that are true if you're changing some significant things so significantly, where then it's like all of these things were true, but then there are these few really important things that are very key to the Freddie Mercury story that were changing totally from what was actually true.
Yeah.
And so then it makes a sort of inconsistency that is damaging to the drama. Maybe.
Look at me. I am captain now.
Well, as far as a music movie goes, the music is like perfect. Like all of the scene, like the studio recordings, the performances, all of that. It's really just the drama stuff that falls, really.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think if you can look at it as, even though this is not the way it's presented, but as a a celebration of the music of Queen rather than the story of Queen, because it's mostly not the true story of it, then it does a very good job of that, and it does give you an opportunity to hear the music in a very high quality in an
and so that
optimal
makes
situation.
The rest of it more disappointing almost because it's like you feel up and you're like, oh, this is so great, like they're doing such a good job, and then it goes back down a little bit.
Yeah, so it's a little there is an unevenness.
Yeah, so I'm giving it 4 stars because inaccuracy for no reason really.
Yeah. Well, the movie may be uneven, but I guess we're not very uneven because I'm gonna give it 4 also, which makes me kind of sad because I'm not disappointed. I wanted it to be really good and I wanted to see it really bad, and it was at least like half really good, and the rest of it was fine. It wasn't like any of it was really terrible except for being inaccurate.
Well, it just, the sexuality stuff really bugged me, especially because they kept kind of harping, like during the press conference part, the reporter kept saying, Freddie, your sexuality. Your sexuality. Your sexuality.
Well, and I'm wondering, like,
so why? Like, I don't understand why they would.
They do make it a key thing,
yeah,
but then they screw it up.
They fuck it up, so that doesn't make any sense.
Well, with that whole kind of propaganda bit, like it almost makes me feel like because when we see that scene, a lot of it's done through his eyes, so it's like we know he's like all messed up, and like his vision is blurry, blah blah blah. And I'm wondering if that's just supposed to be part of this whole propaganda. And I use that word. I know it's a bit strong for this, but that's kind of what it felt like. I was okay with it, but that is what it kind of felt like.
What do you do explain?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Propaganda for what?
About like being gay and getting AIDS.
Oh.
Like that's what they push like through the whole second half of it.
But
that's weird because that was the way it was at the time, but it's not the way it is now.
No,
so it would be weird for people.
But
that's why I'm saying I'm okay with it.
That's the viewpoint of the movie. It seems
it does seem like
it's
weird.
Like if you go gay, everything is going to fall apart for you, and also they make it seem like he went gay or something, which isn't a thing anyway.
Maybe.
And also
it does sort of seem, the way that he puts it is that he's been thinking about it and he's sort of realized this is the way that he feels.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But that's not even what the movie does. What he says is, like, that's a direct quote. He says, I think I'm bisexual.
Yeah.
No, Freddie, you're gay. And then the movie continues. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, like you said, what Bryan Singer's opinion on gay things
Well,
is, so.
we kind of do, though, because of the first X-Men movie.
Huh?
That they're gay?
No. The first X-Men movie. He mirrored the scene of Bobby coming out to his parents as a mutant with the pamphlets and everything.
Yeah,
as
that's true.
A gay, and Bryan Singer is queer, is he not?
Is he?
I don't know. I think.
Well, that would seem to change everything.
Or would it?
I don't know. I could be
sort of,
totally wrong.
He's doing
but
like propaganda against himself. Like what's happening?
No.
Here?
I don't think it's propaganda against himself. I think it's just trying to give that cultural viewpoint, like Cloud was saying, like that's what people thought at the time or whatever. But
okay. Article in the Hollywood Reporter 2014. Bryan Singer says that he's quite bisexual. So
that makes me more angry. Now I'm more angry than I was before.
Does your score change?
Almost. Like, I'm considering. That is way worse.
I guess it's just movie shit.
Accurate quote is accurate.
I try.
It's a really old file.
Yeah.
It's from a long time ago. Yes.
So I do have something else that I want to bring up, and it has nothing to do with the movie, though.
So should we just end the show then?
Well, I mean, you might want to include it in the show. It just has nothing to do with the movie.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do it, and then I'll see.
Okay. So I do kind of want you to explain a little bit to me about, there's that new Pokemon movie that's coming out that you saw the advertisement for in the theater.
Uh-huh.
And you brought
I knew about it before, but that just reminded me to ask you because I had forgotten.
And I wanted you to explain to me what you meant about going to see it, because I went to see the first one.
Well, just because it's part of that. It's like the next episode, kind of. And so I thought, well, you went to see the first one, maybe you'll see this one. I know that you had problems with the first one, so maybe you don't care about what they're doing in this particular series, but...
Well, I would say whenever all this, because I grew up with Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the first one came out, I never got to see it, but at the same time, I didn't even know it came to theaters. I don't even think it really did, because this was like pre-2000.
I think it did.
No, it did.
I remember that it did,
but I had no clue.
Megan saw it with her mom,
and then like 2000 came out. And that one I knew was going to theaters, and I was lucky enough to have my dad take me. Oh God, he hated it because it's like they have like the short at the beginning of it, and like no one says anything, and he's thinking this is the whole movie. Like, no, this is a short, and then the movie's gonna play. Think of Toy Story. It's like you got the short, and then you got the movie. Calm down.
Dad is one of those people.
He's one of those people.
Oh, God.
And then the movie played, and we watched it, and I enjoyed it. But that's the thing, is after that point, it didn't matter if they were going to make another one or anything like that was related to the show. I didn't care. At that point, I wasn't going to go see another one in the theater. Unless they were like, oh yeah, here's you like this mega awesome exclusive thing that you can only get by going to see it. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I already knew people at the theater, so I didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, because they did that. I remember they did that with the second, for sure, the first one and 2000.
The first one, there was like a special thing that had like a gold imprint on it.
Yeah.
But the second one, there was Ancient Mew and then the 3 legendary birds.
Yeah, the first one was like a gold foil Pikachu card, wasn't it?
There was like 7 different ones.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. But then they're like, oh yeah, we're going to completely redo this entire story. And here you go, we're making a movie and it's going to be in theaters. And so I went and saw that. And granted, it pissed me off. Now, whether it was a standalone, whether it was going to be part of a series, like I saw the first one, I'm done. I might watch it, but it's not going to be something I'm going to go to the theater for. But we watched Bohemian Rhapsody yesterday. We are recording today, so it's been like 24 hours.
Yeah.
Within that 24 hours, they actually released the trailer for Detective Pikachu with Ryan Reynolds in it, and I will be going to go see that one. Ryan Reynolds, yes!
I haven't seen the trailer. I did see a tweet about it, and I was like, "What is this?" But I didn't. I didn't look.
It's so good because I normally won't when I'm not at home. I very, very rarely use my phone to watch videos or listen to anything because I don't have tons of data. But I was like, nope, got to watch this now, and I did, and I quite enjoyed it. It was a really good trailer. So yes, like this is something that's going to be special where it's like, hey, this is an actual live action Pokemon movie. I will see it. And when they make the next one, I probably won't go see that one. It's just like, it's like the first one. The first one's what's special. And then after that, it's whatever. So now you know.
So now that we're like at the end here and all that's left is to play the music and say goodbye. And there's no mood to kill. I do want to say this, we're recording this November 12th. And Stan Lee died today.
Yeah.
And I did want to make note of that because we're all very sad.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Stan Lee.
Yes.
Stan the man.
It's not all that we've seen of him because they have already shot his cameos for Infinity War 2 and the next Spider-Man movie. So we will see Stan Lee on screen 2 more times. But there's no...
That's if I can hold it together long enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I see him on screen because I might just tear up and then I won't see anything and it'll be a mess.
So I had meant this music to just be sort of melancholy the way the credits music was at the end of the actual movie, and I picked this out before we heard the news, but it plays a little differently now. I didn't mean it that way. That's all I have to say about Bohemian Rhapsody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Later.